This is the REM, Montreal's $7 billion mega project. It's sleek, it's futuristic, and it might be a disaster waiting to happen. You see, this isn't just another subway, it's the boldest transit gamble in Canada. Stick around because by the end of this video, you'll understand how this could either revolutionize the city or blow up in spectacular fashion. Stretching over the waters of the St. Lawrence, it looks like something out of a futuristic painting. But trust me, it's very real. This is the REM, Montreal's $7 billion experiment in movement. It's a light metro network unlike anything the city has ever seen. 67 kilometers of track, 26 stations. Fully automated, electric, and designed to run almost 20 hours a day. This isn't an extension of the old metro, it's an entirely new species of transit. But let's pause and look beneath the shine. What exactly lies inside this machine? You see, the backdrop is pretty urgent. Montreal hasn't launched a transit leap of this scale in decades. This is Quebec's largest infrastructure project in half a century. Urban sprawl, traffic congestion, stretched commuter patterns. The region is primed for disruption. From the urban planning vantage, the city's pushing densification goals, shifting away from car dominance, and has pressing climate targets. For example, the REM is projected to shave about 2.5 million tons of greenhouse gases over 25 years. The governance model is also novel. The project is led by CDPQ Infra, a pension fund subsidiary rather than a traditional transit agency, reshaping risk and incentive frameworks. In short, the conditions were just aligned, but alignment does not guarantee success. But now let's just zoom back in to the vulnerabilities and the risk zones. You see, this project began in 2018. First excavations, first steel beams, the promise of a network that would tie together the fractured geography of Montreal. By mid-2023, the first branch opened from Brossard onto the South Shore to downtown, sliding beneath the river in silence. It has driverless technology, grade 4 of automation. This is the highest level possible. It means trains that think for themselves, precise, tireless, and on time to the second. Platforms shielded by glass, doors that breathe open, then close with a hush. Stations built from glass, wood, and light, designed to feel more like airports than subways. Step inside and the chaos of the city, well, it softens. Every detail, it feels deliberate. Scandinavian minimalism meeting Quebecois engineering. Even the absence of a driver changes the psychology. No human face, just motion, data, rhythm. And it feels almost inevitable, like this is how transit was always meant to be. But this isn't just a new line, it's a framework, an entirely new way of wiring a metropolis. The REM branches across the region like a nervous system. South Shore, West Island, North Shore, all feeding into a central spine. Each station acts as a landmark, sculpted architecture meant to inspire civic pride, but engineered for efficiency. Trains are built to endure Quebec's brutal winter, heating coils under the new tracks, snow sensors across the doors. Frequency, it rivals subways in Tokyo or Paris. Trains every 2.5 minutes at peak. The old logic of commuting, car first, city second, it's being rewritten. On paper, it's magnificent, a region rewired. But ambition this big invites an even bigger question. Why now? Why Montreal? And why build something of this magnitude at this moment of history? Beneath the polish of the REM's promise runs a harder truth, one of risk, pressure, and uncertainty. Because behind every smooth train lies a system straining under its own ambition. At its heart, the REM carries risk, cost risk, schedule risk, engineering risk, and political risk. You see, once upon a time, the price tag was $6.3 billion. Today, that figure hovers near $8.3 billion. A climb measured not only in money, but in public trust. Deadlines have slipped from 2022 to 2025 and counting. And you see, every delays frays confidence. Every dollar overrun stirs doubt. In a city that has waited half a century for a project this bold, patience is running thin. But beyond the numbers lies the sheer complexity of what's being attempted. You see, they're tunneling through the city's spine. The century-old Montréal tunnel, once carved for steam engines, now being reborn for driverless trains. They're building viaducts through clay soils that shift with frost, threading new rails through living neighborhoods. Every miscalculation cost millions. Every vibration, every millimeter matters. This is engineering on a knife's edge. But even if it's built perfectly, will people use it? Ridership projection promises 160 to 170,000 passengers a day. But projections are projections, they're dreams. And Montreal is a city still welded to the car. If commuters stay behind their steering wheels, if habits don't break, then the REM becomes an empty ribbon of steel, a ghost of good intentions. Worse, some fears it will cannibalize existing commuter rail lines, pulling riders from one system just to feed another. And, well, there's another kind of risk, quieter, more architectural. Stations like Fairview Pointe-Claire sit in low-density zones, surrounded not by homes or streets, but by parking. And if nothing changes around them, if condos and cafes don't rise, these stops risk becoming what planners dread most: express trains to nowhere. A system that moves, but that doesn't connect. The REM's success depends not just on its rails, but on the life that grows around them. And then there's winter, Montreal's endless test. Snow, ice, freezing rain, conditions that humble even the toughest infrastructure. For an automated system, there's no margin for error. One frozen sensor, one jammed door, one stalled train, and the dream can seize up in the cold. These are the unseen battles, the engineering, the economics, the psychology of trust. They are the gears that must all spin together. But to understand what really is at stake, we have to step back. Because beyond the tunnels and costs lies a bigger question. What will this do to Montreal's shape and to its soul? The REM isn't just a train, it's an act of urban future craft. A reimagining of how Montreal might breathe, grow, and move. Steel and concrete are its skeleton. Its soul, though, will be written in the spaces that form around it, because every station is more than a stop. It's a seed. Transit-oriented development, TOD, that's the real gamble here. If done right, each REM station can anchor a dense, mixed-use community, homes above shops, cafes spilling onto sidewalks, commuters becoming neighbors, walkable, livable, sustainable. But it all depends on land use. The invisible code that decides whether a neighborhood thrives or stagnates. Build density and you shape a new Montreal. Leave parking lots and you build nothing but convenience. And if this whole TOD concept is really interesting to you guys, I did make a video on it previously and it will be linked in the description down below. But let's just go back to the REM, because it's important that we understand also that densification isn't just a buzzword, it's survival. You see, if the REM truly sparks new nodes of growth, commute time shrinks, car ownership drops, and, well, Montreal inches closer to its climate goals. Intermodal connectivity will make or break it. I'm talking buses, metros, bikes, and sidewalks. They all must weave together into one living network, because a brilliant train line fails the moment it becomes an island, when people can't get to it or from it with ease. Accessibility, that's where the next battle begins. Because stay with me here, the REM could be Montreal's great equalizer or its new dividing line. Will stations be accessible to everyone or become premium corridors for the affluent? Will the city use this momentum to connect underserved communities or price them out of the very future being built in their name? Transit equity isn't about tickets, it's about belonging. And with growth comes pressure. You see, every station lifts the value of the ground it touches. Property prices climbs. Investors, well, they swarm, and the people who've always lived there, the renters, the shop owners, the families, feel the tremor first. The REM's economic ripple could rejuvenate entire boroughs or hollow them out. Growth and gentrification often ride the same rails. But beyond economics, something deeper is also at stake. The REM is 100% electric, automated, and almost silent. It represents a low-carbon ideal. The idea that a metropolis can expand and still shrink its footprint. If it succeeds, Montreal becomes a North American model for sustainable mobility. And if it fails, it becomes a warning, a monument to how technology means nothing without planning. These are the stakes: the shape of a city, the fairness of its growth, the sustainability of its promise. And now we zoom in one final time to the razor's edge between success and failure. Because in the end, it all comes down to this. The REM isn't finished, it's becoming. And now, as the final bolts tighten and the paint dries, Montreal waits to see whether this experiment in motion will live up to the promise or prove the critics right. They say the devil's in the details, and for the REM, the devil is everywhere. The first test will be reliability. A strong opening builds trust. A single week of breakdowns and faith collapse. We can look at Ottawa for an example. Transit projects don't get second chances, they're the headlines. So every morning the doors open. Every minute the trains arrive on time, that's a victory. Not just for engineering, but for credibility. But trust doesn't mean nothing without people. You see, ridership will tell the truth, and no press release can. If 160 to 170,000 people really ride it daily, those numbers hold. If not, every car that stays on the road becomes a symbol of doubt. Will Montrealers trade the comfort of their steering wheels for the precision of automation? Or will the REM glide through the city half empty? A beautiful solution to a problem that habits refuse to solve. Then, of course, comes the money. Every billion over budget is a political earthquake. I mean, the REM began at 6.3 billion. Now it hovers past 8. In public projects, numbers aren't neutral, they're emotional. They're a way to measure not just dollars, but trust. And even if the trains run, the question remains. What happens around them? The REM's true test isn't under the tracks, it's beside them. Station area development will define whether this is a transit system or a catalyst for a new urban area. Will the land around stations rise into mixed-use neighborhoods? Or will it stagnate, seas of parking under silver bridges? If the REM doesn't inspire density, it won't change behavior. It will move bodies, but not the city's soul. And integration, well, that's where transit becomes culture. Transfers must be seamless first and last mile effortless. Winter performance flawless, not just mechanical, but psychological. Because one frozen switch, 1 week of closures, and Montreal's confidence could freeze with it. And finally, equity. The REM must belong to everyone. If it serves only those who can afford to live near its station, it fails its purpose. Transit is the great equalizer, or the great divider. You see, the choice lies not in design, but in policy. So what could make it, or break it? If you stayed with me until now, thank you. You know the REM from the inside out, the metal and money, the vision and the risk. You've seen how every rail, every sensor, every decision ripples across a living city. Because in urban planning still is never the full story. The rest, the part that truly matters, is people, land, and behavior. Infrastructure does move us, but it's what we build around it that defines us. Each station tells a different story. Some will bloom into new urban centers. Others may sit still, waiting for the city to catch up. The REM's future will be written one neighborhood at a time. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you on the next video.